Very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
The headlines for you at 6 o'clock this morning. Joe Biden starts to plan for life as president. Tackling the coronavirus is top of the list.
Donald Trump heads back to the golf course. He refuses to concede and renews his allegation that the election was stolen.
2.5-week coronavirus firebreak in Wales ends with new rules coming into force.
Good morning. Use them or lose them. A warning to holiday makers who've been given a credit note for trips cancelled over COVID. They will expire. You could lose cash.
It's all square at the Etihad. Kevin De Bruyne misses from the penalty spot as Manchester City draw with champions Liverpool in the Premier League.
Good morning. It's a foggy but a mild start to the day. We've got rain clearing the east, a lot of cloud and a few showers coming in from the west. But there is some sunshine in the forecast. I'll tell you where in 10 minutes.
Good morning. It's Monday. It's the 9th of November. And the top story for you this morning is the US President-elect Joe Biden has begun planning his presidency and has said coronavirus will be his key priority when he officially takes over in January.
Mr. Biden is expected to name a team of experts today who will draw up plans to tackle the virus in America. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is still refusing to accept the results of last week's election. Our correspondent Ben Wright reports.
If Donald Trump remains in any doubt about the election result, he only needs to look out of the window. Joe Biden supporters continued to party outside the White House on Sunday, while the president slipped away for another round of golf. Mr. Trump has not conceded and instead continues to claim, without providing any evidence, that there was widespread election fraud. While some senior Republicans have backed Donald Trump's stand, on Sunday the former President George W. Bush issued a statement of congratulations. Though we have political differences, he wrote, I know Joe Biden to be a good man who has won his opportunity to lead and unify our country.
Well, I just had the opportunity to have an excellent conversation with President-elect Trump.
After winning 4 years ago, Donald Trump met the outgoing President Barack Obama at the White House within a week of Election Day, the cordial beginning of a transfer of power that continues through to the inauguration. At least that's how it's meant to work. So far, President Trump has refused to acknowledge that Joe Biden has won. The president-elect does not need Donald Trump's concession or congratulations to plan for power. Joe Biden and the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris are busy building a transition team, choosing key appointments, and yesterday launched a website outlining the immediate priorities for his administration, from trying to repair the economy to tackling the pandemic.
Our work begins with getting COVID under control. We cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments, hugging our grandchildren, our children, our birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter most to us until we get it under control.
COVID is America's most pressing crisis. Deaths are rising in 27 states and the virus is surging across the country. Today, Mr. Biden will announce the makeup of a new COVID task force that will work on containing the pandemic. But Mr. Biden will not be able to take action until he becomes president. Despite Donald Trump's refusal to accept the result, Joe Biden will be sworn into office in front of the Capitol building on January the 20th next year. His supporters have high hopes, but the challenges are huge. And while Mr. Biden has talked about working with Republicans in Congress, the political divisions are deep. Ben Wright, BBC News, Washington.
Let's speak to Ben right now. Ben, what more do we know about Mr. Biden's plans so far?
Well, he's going to announce who will be sitting on his advisory board in a few hours' time. And, I mean, tackling the COVID pandemic was central to his campaign. And he clearly thinks there needs to be more work directed from the centre, from the White House, in terms of enforcing mask-wearing mandates, working with governors to ensure more Americans are, applying the basic rules of social distancing and protecting each other from the virus. There is need for federal aid package that he will be planning for and hoping to shake Congress into action on. And he'll be talking to experts about how to start rolling out vaccines when they become available, he hopes, in the new year. But as I said, he can do this planning now, but it's President Trump who remains in charge until January the 20th. And the president has not spoken publicly since this election was called for Joe Biden, but we know through his tweets that he he still is clinging to the idea that lawsuits and potential recounts could in some way change the outcome. But almost nobody, including senior Republicans, feel that that is at all plausible. So we wait to hear from President Trump and whether he may, over the course of the next few days, accept the inevitable and begrudgingly offer Joe Biden his congratulations. But few at the moment are holding their breath for that.
OK, Ben, thank you very much indeed for that. And we'll be finding more out about what this means for the future relationship between the UK and the US with former Prime Minister Gordon Brown at 8:30 here on Breakfast.
So here's a question for you. What does Joe Biden's presidency mean for that US-UK relationship? Lots about that throughout the programme for you today. Let's grab a word with our political correspondent, Jonathan Blake, who joins us live from Westminster. Jonathan, good morning to you. There are lots of areas to discuss on this one, aren't there?
Morning, Dan. Yes, there are. Joe Biden may have broken up the political bromance between Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a big shift in UK-US relations overnight. The relationship between the two countries has, of course, been strong for centuries. But how strong can depend on the political and the personal relationship between the leaders of each two countries. So Boris Johnson and Joe Biden, what is the starting point? Well, they've never met. Last year, Joe Biden described Boris Johnson as a physical and emotional clone of Donald Trump. And then there's Brexit, which Joe Biden thinks is a bad idea. And taking the UK out of the EU is, of course, the linchpin of Boris Johnson's premiership. Despite all that, though, speaking yesterday, the Prime Minister said there was nothing to worry about.
There is far more that unites the government of this country and government in Washington any time, at any stage, than divides us. We have common values, we have common interests, we have a common global perspective. There's a huge amount of work we need to do together to protect those values. A belief in democracy, in free speech around the world, in human rights, in free trade, in the rules-based international order. All these things are currently under threat, and you have the United States and Britain standing together, as they have done many times in the past, to protect those values.
There are undoubtedly opportunities as well as challenges, shared common ground between the UK and the US in tackling climate change. That was something that Donald Trump really didn't have much time for. Then there's Iran, keeping that country's nuclear ambitions in check and taking a hard line against Russia as well. So let's wait and see what the relationship between the UK and the US has to offer in future. But with Donald Trump leaving the White House, it may well be a little bit more predictable than it has been. OK,
Jonathan, thank you very much for that.
The 17-day firebreak lockdown ends in Wales today. Pubs, bars and non-essential shops are some of the businesses that can reopen.
The country's health minister, that's Labour's Vaughan Gething, says it will be another fortnight before the full impact of the restrictions are known. Our correspondent Tomas Morgan has more.
This time last year, 15-year-old Oshan Roberts was making a name for himself playing for the Cardiff Blues Rugby Academy. But during the firebreak, he's had to train on his own. From today, though, he'll be able to practice with friends again at his local club in a group of up to 30.
Being able to play rugby again, going back to sort of normality, it's not going to be normal, but it's going to be more normal than it used to be.
As well as outdoor sports training, gyms and indoor leisure facilities will be reopening, along with those non-essential shops that were closed during the firebreak. 2 households will also be able to mix and form one extended household or bubble. In an effort to help those living alone and youngsters, the Welsh Government have said that 4 people from different households will be able to meet for a walk or in a cafe, bar or restaurant. But those different 4 will have to socially distance in a hospitality venue, where ID checks will also be required.
Staff's are your biggest cost. Now we've got extra people to make sure that these ID checks are done, that the track and trace is still being done, that the cleaning is still getting done. We're going to end up having more staff than customers, I think.
Measures may be eased further as we approach Christmas, but it will depend on whether the firebreak has done its job, and we won't know that for at least another 2 weeks. Tomas Morgan, BBC News, Cardiff.
The number of confirmed COVID infections worldwide now stands at more than 50 million. Europe, which has been seeing a resurgence in cases, is once more the epicentre of the pandemic, although the list of affected countries is topped by the United States, India and Brazil. More than 1.25 million people have now died from the virus worldwide.
Police in Manchester have strongly condemned a 600-strong protest against national lockdown measures, describing the gathering as irresponsible. 4 people were arrested on suspicion of public order offences and 24 demonstrators were issued with £200 fines. Police also said one group of protesters travelled by coach from Cumbria to attend the gathering. Some officers were injured at that demonstration.
60% of people with disabilities who use social care have had difficulty getting hold of essential items during the pandemic. That includes medication, PPE and vital breathing equipment. That's according to research obtained for the BBC by the polling group YouGov. The government's defended its record on support, saying it's fully considered the needs of disabled people throughout the pandemic.
Virgin Hyperloop, which is a futuristic transport system, has trialled the first ever journey with passengers, and it's been taking place in the Nevada desert. It involves travelling in a pod, you can see it there, at very high speed. In the trial, 2 company staff members travelled the 500-metre track in 15 seconds. They went 107 miles an hour. Virgin's ambition is to reach speeds of more than 1,000 kilometres per hour, which would mean you could get between Gatwick and Heathrow Airport in about 4 minutes.
It's absolutely amazing, isn't it, if that were to happen?
It really is the golden age of television.
Should we have a little look at some of the front pages in today's papers for you this morning? Lots of front pages still focused on the US presidential election. Pressure grows on Trump to go quietly is what the Daily Telegraph has got in their headline. They're reporting former Republican President George W. Bush congratulating Joe Biden on his win, saying the election was fundamentally fair. And I'm sure you recognise the photograph there. That's the Queen, who was at the Cenotaph yesterday for a socially distanced Remembrance Sunday.
The Guardian predicts a turbulent transition for Joe Biden to the White House, but says the president-elect is determined to hit the ground running. The newspaper says his priority is a 12-member task force to deal with the coronavirus pandemic.
The Metro reports that current US President Donald Trump is fuming and refusing to accept defeat following that election result. He's been playing golf for the last couple of days. Trump the Grump is their headline.
And in a similar vein, the New York Times says, as Mr. Biden prepares to enter office, President Trump refuses to concede.
What have you got there?
I've got some happy times. How to be happy. Have an allotment.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, you've been gardening quite a bit, haven't you?
I have been gardening. I have done a lot of planting in the hope that in the spring it's going to look lovely. This is a project by academics at the University of Sheffield, examined the diary of entries of 96 allotment holders to determine whether they benefited from tending fruit and vegetable patches, and apparently they did. They found that there was quite a wide spectrum of mental health benefits as people describe community events, the nice feeling of sharing food, knowledge and skills while connecting with nature.
And did you see the full list of I'm a Celeb contestants?
I did.
Yesterday. So Vernon Kay's in there, Bev Callard, Sir Mo Farah, Jessica Plummer, formerly of EastEnders, Shane Ritchie, Victoria Derbyshire, AJ Pritchard, Jordan North, the Radio 1 DJ, Giovanna Fletcher and Holly Arnold. And apparently they've got Chelsea Grimes, who's a footballer turned musician, on sort of COVID standby. So if anybody, if anybody goes under, then she comes in.
And they're still going to eat rice and beans.
Yes.
Hopefully keep them warm.
I think it'd be a good, in the same way that Strictly has been sort of a bit of light relief. I think this will be a good lift as well.
6:15, President-elect Joe Biden has said he wants to unite the US after a hard-fought and divisive election campaign.
74 million Americans voted for him, more than 70 million for Donald Trump. But will he be able to do all that he pledges and bring the country together? Clive Myrie has been finding out.
America has always been an unruly place. When the sun rises, it warms a land of competing ideas, of states and minds determined to show their independence. But this fractured existence was held together by a common thread, that all are equal, that all can dream. But recent years highlight the fraying of the thread. In the years up to the era of Donald Trump, Americans ate the same brunch, but too often talked past each other, left and right on parallel roads. Can Joe Biden wipe away the stain of divisiveness? Eileen Weisberg is a retired former hospital worker, and she voted for the Democrats here in Philadelphia. Her recollection of recent American history is wistful.
They forget that when Bill Clinton was in office, everyone made money, and people seem to be united. Now it's all these people coming out, these groups that are for Trump and causing problems. It's a sad thing. I don't remember it being like this. No, but it's...
Tony picks up the bill. He wouldn't tell us his surname. And the sting of defeat as one of the 70 million who voted for Donald Trump leaves him in little mood to hear the arguments of the winning side.
He got the economy going. More people are working today than ever before the forget about the COVID-19, before that. He might go down as one of the best presidents for the working people.
History's judgment on this age is to come, and it won't be kind on the handling of the coronavirus. There will also be a truly damning verdict of America if this new opportunity many believers now come with the election isn't seized to bridge the partisan divide. If this generation fails to truly reflect on the legacy it wants to leave. Lori Martirano voted for Joe Biden and expresses the hopes of millions.
In a lot of ways, he wasn't like my first choice, I'll be honest. But I think to unite people, he's excellent for that. I think that he will do really well. We have to come together. We have to.
As the light fades on America's election campaign, where Joe Biden says he wants to lead, will America follow? Clive Myrie, BBC News in Philadelphia.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live in the app and get the full story with bbc.co.uk/news. Follow the story for all the latest with BBC News.